So hi, on the Grind Podcast. I'm Shane,
I'm Glory.
and we're here with
Chris.
And Kenny from The Head and the Heart.
there are some questions to say about the new album Aperture. So congrats on that. By the way, how you guys feel about the response to it so far?
Man, it's been great. I mean, it's been a handful of years since we had the ability to enjoy an album release together. You know, the last one was released in the middle of COVID and had some like internal band disruptions happening. And so yeah, being able to write this one together and put it out and be in the same city and do all the promo around it as a group in a real world that's actually open and you know moving is has been really nice. It's been fun.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Wonderful.
I was reading all the press materials that were sent over before the interview, and I'm so excited to dive into the interview with you, or into the album with you guys, because it feels like the band is like rejuvenated and actually really excited about this album, because you guys were able to work on this together, correct? All in a room.
Yes, sir.
Hell yeah.
We did a
Uh,
lot of in the past. A lot of times, like demos would be brought in, and there'd be a lot of songwriting, like as individuals, and which still happened a little bit on this record, but so much of it was just written in the room,
Mhm.
like things that sparked from a piano part or a drum beat or that created these whole like instrumentals and then lyrics put onto it. And so it was kind of like, I feel like we hadn't done that in a while, of just creating in the moment together in the room, which was like, I mean, it's just super fun to create something out of nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
Yeah.
the album is incredible.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so
Really
much.
dig it.
Thank you.
Hell yeah.
Of course. So, is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
Yeah, Aperture the title came along initially from a song lyric. There's a song in on the album titled Aperture, but in that song is a lyric "Open up the aperture" that Maddie, one of the members, wrote, and it was really just a general idea of aperture is opening the lens in a camera to let the light in and
Mhm.
let positive things in a sense, and that kind of became a large theme of the record. It was really just about like all of us just trying to regain trust in one another and letting a good thing in and letting something be what it is naturally rather than trying to force it into something different or whatever. There's a million ways to look at it, but yeah, it just kind of became a general theme of yeah, letting light in, letting good things in, letting things be as they are, and trusting each other as a group. And I feel like we really thrived this go around in doing all of that.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And
Wonderful.
any meaning behind the cover art?
Mhm.
Cover art, that was a doozy to figure out. I feel like we had a million options flying around for a little bit, and I think I think the general idea of the cover art was kind of, it's like a photo that's almost clear and in there, and it is of all of us, but it's not completely 100% identifiable of who's who and whatnot. But yeah, I think we just really liked the image after a while, and we were kind of battling between a handful of different directions. And that's one thing about this band that's amazing, but it can also be tough, is that we're all six of us. It's a democratic band. We all make decisions together and split everything equally, which I think is pretty rare for bands these days. And I really love that about our band, but it means that decisions have to be made, and sometimes that can be tough. And I feel like the album
Yeah.
art this go around there was a lot of different ideas being thrown out and a lot of split, and eventually we all settled on what it is.
That's
Yeah, it
good.
was
Wonderful.
it was kind of the image that was trying the least hard, which I feel like, to Kenny's point about making the record, I feel like some of the images were just too specific, too
Mhm.
like, you know, too much meaning, too much. And finally it was just like, what's like simple, like has a feeling that's maybe not so specific, not so, it's like because I really like the cover. It makes me feel something without
Mhm.
telling me what to feel, which I
Yeah.
think is kind of like in line with how the record was made too. Just kind of it doesn't have to be, you don't have to try so hard all the time kind of thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No.
Totally. And I think too, I mean, like I think if we didn't have a deadline on it, we could have gone back and forth forever, you know, just not being able to choose. We eventually just had to settle on something. But I think I've always been a firm believer that if the body of work, especially with music, if an album is great and people love the record, then the art almost eventually becomes iconic in its own way, even if it's something super simple. You know, look at like the White Album or anything like that. Um, and so
No,
now
Chris.
that now that we've had some time with it, I feel like I've I've grown to really love it even more than I did when we first decided on it, because now it's already evoking what the album means to us
Yeah.
and the world, you know.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So can you guys tell us a little bit about the writing process for the album?
Yeah, I think we were between labels, kind of between management. We were kind of like floating on our own. And
Kind of free agents for the first time in a long time.
but
Yeah.
I mean, we had time and we figured, why not just start writing
Yeah.
without a deadline, without an agenda, without, you know, the clock ticking, any of that stuff. So we just started booking studio time in Richmond and in Seattle. We kind of bounced between. And we did some smaller groups of 4, groups of 3, groups of, you know, all of us together. We kind of had a handful of different um, ways that we went about it, but yeah, it kind of created this very free space to like not feel any pressure. Again, not have any deadlines, which was it just made the whole process a lot more freeing and
Mhm.
fun without knowing that there's, it's like by June 5th, you got to have, your single picked out or, all that stuff, which is important. And, eventually you get there, but to start the process without any of that, I think kind of set the tone for the whole record.
Yeah, it's rare to be
wonderful.
that deep in your career and just be able to kind of have an album where there is no deadline to start off with. Obviously, it comes later on, but to start out, there's no masters have to be in hand at this point.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's wild if you think about it. Like, your first record, it's like the ultimate cliche in music that you have your whole life to write your first record
Mhm.
Yeah.
and a couple years to write your second, you know. And it's like the first one really just came about because we were doing it for fun. You know, there was no record label, there was no goal really. It was kind of just like, well, this is what we're doing as friends for fun. We were all working normal jobs on the side, and it just became what it was. And then once you're, you know, in the business and you're signed to labels and you have management and all these things, it does start to become feel more like a business in that sense, where there are strict deadlines, and sometimes it's really tough to force creativity to think, like, you know, if you're going through a slump or if you're just not feeling super inspired, like just to try to come up with something out of thin air can be really tough. And I think this go around, after 3 records on a major label, that was great. Like, overall, you know, we had a really good experience, but there was a lot of that, a lot of kind of direction and strict timelines and just I think stress overall. And this was the first time, maybe since our first record, that we, you know, had the complete freedom to go and just take our time with it and do whatever we wanted. We didn't have anybody telling us like what it should sound like right off the bat. And yeah, it was very freeing. And initially, these writing trips that were really just to initially to start getting ideas going and demos recorded turned into our actual recording trips. You know, eventually we were loving the sounds we were getting as we were writing the songs and demoing the songs, and we just decided to start tracking. And so a lot of the songs you hear on the record were recorded the day they were written or within a day
Mhm.
or two of them being finalized, you know, and then we finally just track it and then move on to the next one. So I think there's a realism there that you know, that we've had in certain ways on every one of our records, but especially on this one.
That's awesome to
Yeah.
Well,
hear.
after we did our first record, we went in to record demos so we could try to like book shows. Like we were recording demos.
Yeah.
And then like we finished them and we're like, kind of a record.
Yeah, might as well
Yeah,
release
like
it.
I think it
Yeah.
sounds good enough. Like we could just maybe record a couple more and call it a record. And that's
I
kind of like
per-
with this, like there was times where, we would record at least like the instrumental of a song in, a couple hours. and then have another, session maybe a couple months later and like, oh, let's work on that song. Let's record it. It's like, we already did. Like,
Yeah.
so many of those sort of live, like initial, tracking, where usually you would go and re-record it and, scrutinize it and I feel like this time we kind of left those as is, built on them, but like, because I mean, the magic when you're creating in the moment, it's like trying to re-record those things. It just never turns out the same, like ever. So having a good engineer and setting it up to while you're writing, you're capturing good audio, which is what we did. And yeah, a lot of that stuff we just kept and you're not gonna capture it any better once you know it more. I feel like that almost sometimes can make a part worse if you know it too well, or
I
you
think
know
I
a song
remember.
too well. So that's
I
like an
feel
old like Neil Young philosophy, like once you know how to play the song, well then you're done recording. You've already lost your window.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like we got so used to having to, especially being on a major for 3 records, where it did feel like we had to kind of have everything be perfected and very polished and produced sounding. But I remember, I think it was you actually, Chris, like a few writing sessions in, maybe it was you. I remember you being the first one just to kind of mention, like, why don't we just start tracking this? Like, these sounds are good. Like, why are we going to book more time to come back in here in 3 or 4 months to record these songs that are already sounding good? And I think at first there were a few like, maybe not eye rolls, but just like, I don't know about that. And then the more we started doing it, the more it made sense. And once everybody was on board, then we were just rolling. And then it felt like we could be like free and experimental in the moment, but you don't have to worry about losing that spark or that magic that you're capturing that day. Because in the past, there would be a lot of like, oh, I love this demo so much. And like that day was so great when we put this on tape, and that feeling's so great, but we have to go make it better. And it never, like Chris said, it rarely sounds as good or as, enthralling as that, what's captured when it's first written.
Gotcha. And I'm really curious on if there was any added nerves or pressure since you guys didn't have a label breathing down your neck for this process. You guys didn't have those guidelines, those deadlines. It was just you guys and the music. So was there any nerves or anything like, oh shit, I don't know where we go from here? When do we stop?
Not for me. I guess real quick answer for me, then you can go, Chris. But yeah, I don't think I personally did. It felt like we just finally had nobody breathing down our neck, and we had time. And I think we knew that there were going to be labels there. We knew that like those things were waiting for us, and we'd have meetings and be able to decide that. But for me, it was really nice, and I didn't feel that way at all. But
Good.
can't speak for Chris.
No, usually in that scenario, I feel like it allowed us to like go down some avenues that maybe some like rabbit holes that maybe you wouldn't normally go down because you have to keep it, between the bumpers or whatever. So yeah, there was some fun like little rabbit holes that, it's like, we've got time. Like we're not on the clock. Granted, we're paying for it. It's coming out of our pocket and all that. But like, I feel like some fun ideas came out of that, which maybe didn't make the record, but I feel like part of music is having fun and allowing yourself to, get a little weird or try some stuff that, is not totally, the direction of where you're going, but I don't know, just allowing yourself that kind of freedom. I think, and yeah, so I think starting the record without any pressure allowed some of those, there's some really fun songs that we recorded that, maybe will be like a B-side or a fun release that
There's some songs that were like
pure song kind of, and like just some stuff that
some songs that like definitely didn't sound like we had to question, like, could we even put this out because it sounds so different than what our band is, but it was super fun. And I think just like Chris said, just going in and having fun with it was such a breath of fresh air and a relief, because when it's rigid and you are going for something very specific and there's a deadline, and it has to be, I don't know, it can suck all the creative energy out of the room. And I think just being loose with it and light with it, like I mean, it's like the classic thing, just like the less stress you allow in your life, like the more enjoyable it is, obviously. And the process works the same when you're making a record or writing music, you know? And I think
For
the
sure.
quality actually ends up shining. It's like you think this is way more DIY and we're having fun, but this isn't as serious, but then it ends up being better, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. Damn straight. So, what song off the album took the longest to write, and which one is each of your own personal favorite?
Your
I
Pool
don't
Break.
know
I
off
feel
the
like
top
Pool
of my
Break was
head.
really quick, but then we
That was
nitpicked at it
quick.
forever. But that was
Yeah.
quick. Yeah. I know. I'm trying to think.
Cop Car was really quick. I think Cop Car is maybe my favorite.
Mhm.
That was just one of those. Um, Sometimes I think the songs that are written the quickest are my favorite. They're just like by by nature, they're just more natural because they're so spontaneous.
Mhm.
Like the idea comes out so quickly. Um, and that was one that we tried to uh really preserve a little bit just because after the day of recording, you could take it in a million directions or rearrange it or done it, but like the initial spark that came out just felt so real
Mhm.
that that was one that was like, okay, like don't touch it, like put it away, like just because it's hard too because everyone has ideas and like, oh, let's try this and try this and try this. That was one that was like written really quick and um within within hours it was like, I think we have it. I think like like you know but then yeah, there's other songs that do take so long and it's like just you're trying to crack some code and it's like you're
Mhm.
just so close and you just kind of keep going back and forth. I'm trying to think on this record, Kenny. I'm not sure if you can recall like a song that just we kind of
Yeah, I feel like there wasn't like one that's coming to mind that was really tough to put together. I feel like there were some
yeah.
songs that came together in a matter of hours and some that took a few days, but in the past we've had songs that took a year to chip away at, you know, like our
Oh,
song All We Ever Knew was like, you know, off our third record. I feel like that was one that took like 2 years of like changing parts, sitting with something for a bit, not liking it, so we changed it again, and eventually it became what it was on the record. But we didn't have any of those this
maybe
go around. What was
maybe
that?
Time with My Sins. That was like had been a song sort of for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and then it
Yeah,
came
that might.
together. I feel like we tried it in like a handful of different ways, like different like tempos, drum rhythms. That one I think we had to try quite a few things before we kind of got it. But
Yeah, I agree with Chris
um,
though. I feel like for me, the songs that come together quickly, I tend to like
Mhm.
the most. I guess there are lots of songs that took a while to make that I am very proud of, but the reason songs might take a while to finish is because there's something wrong with it, and you're having to figure out what's wrong.
yeah.
And when a song comes together, and we all agree within hours that the structure is right, and that there's
Mhm.
nothing that's like hanging up or nagging anybody or bugging anyone, which usually there's something, you know, that just doesn't feel right. It's so effortless and enjoyable. I wish we could write every song that way because we could crank out a new record every 6 months, you know. But
Yeah.
one song, just I mean, I go back and forth, and there's a lot of songs on this record that I love. I love all of them. And not even just saying that, like I truly do, and have a hard time picking a favorite. But one song lately that I've been really loving playing is the song Fire Escape. And
Mhm.
that was one that also like I feel like it was almost a blur. It kind of just came together in 2 or 3 hours in the studio. And it's very quirky and like fun to play and kind of weird. But I love songs like that. And it just, for me, playing, it's been really, really fun. And I'm excited to play that one live.
Hell yeah, love it.
Cool.
So how did the track list for the album come about? Did you guys write the opener be the opener, close be the closer, shuffle around and see what fits? What was that process like?
that was similar to the album cover. I think it was just so many opinions
Mhm.
internally, externally. Um, yeah, I think that was like
A lot of people were set on it being like a shorter album, like 10 songs max. Some people didn't really care as much. Our last record was a lot of songs, and I think we were like, let's do a shorter one this go around. But then there were a lot of songs we all really loved, so it was really, really difficult. It
Yeah.
felt once we got to that point, it felt impossible to choose 10. And so
Mhm.
we ended up pushing a couple extra in there. And yeah, even then there were some songs that were really, really tough to not put on the record. And we kind of had to convince ourselves that those songs are good enough to be on the record, but they'll just have to be released later on something else, you know.
Yeah. That's fair.
But
And
it was
this
a
one,
process, a lot of calls and a lot of back and forth and debating with our record label and management. And yeah, I have some PTSD from remembering those calls, just long, like
yeah.
2-3 hour calls, and just like, oh my
Jesus.
gosh. And then one day you think your favorite song's on the record because everybody agrees, and the next day they're like, no, never mind, and you're like, damn it.
What the
You know,
hell?
so it
Yeah.
can change, but it's a process. But we made it happen, and I'm really happy with it.
That's good.
Yeah,
Hell
straight. Yeah. And this one should be super, super quick. Off the top of your heads, I want you guys to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. 3 words each, 6 total, no more, no less.
Can I preface it or just say it or?
You could preface it, yeah.
Well, I've been thinking about like the process of this one. I think in the past we've made records kind of by committee. Everybody, we all have very strong opinions, and in the past we've made records where, and myself included, I have an opinion about everybody's part. I have an opinion about the drums, the piano, the vocal, the harmony, my part, like, and we're all kind of like that. We're kind of all producers. That's kind of how we all think. And it's tedious, and obviously it's produced some really great records, some good song, like great songs. It's one way to work. But I feel like this album, to me, I've been thinking about like how we did it and what it reflects. And to me, it's just like live and let live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's how we approach the writing process of like, and like Kenny was saying about trust, like you do your thing, I'll do my thing. Like we don't need to like get into the nitty gritty on every little note that everyone is playing. Anyway, I've been thinking about live and let live. So
I like
So
that.
So live and let live. Those are your 3 words.
Live, let live.
Live, let live. Yeah. The and is, it doesn't.
Yeah. We don't have to worry about it. So you said 3 words, right?
Yeah.
I would say a return. And with some context, it feels kind of like a return to form in some ways, like to our earlier records, which I've always been very close with, and so it feels good. I would say positivity, and I would say fire, because it's fire.
Fire. Hell yeah.
Fire as hell.
Fire.
So can you guys talk about any particularly challenging or standout moments during the creation of the album, positive or negative?
I really don't. I mean, negative, it's hard to think of. I don't have a ton. I mean, there's always days in the studio where you're stressed out about something or somebody's being annoying or whatever, but there's 6 of us, so it happens. But yeah,
it felt like definitely the most like even keel process we've ever had making a record. I feel like in the past, kind of what I was saying earlier, of like we would kind of do everything by committee. So there was a lot of, not arguing, but a lot of conversations, a lot of intense feelings about what I'm doing, what you're doing. So there a lot of like up and downs during the process of writing and recording. This one felt a little more just like, not smooth sailing, that's not the right way to describe it, but just kind of like a more even temperament. So I feel like the highs and lows were maybe a little, it was like compressed.
Yeah.
The peaks didn't maybe peak as much and the lows didn't hurt as much, but yeah, it kind of felt like easier. I don't know if that's, I don't know.
It's a positive.
That makes sense.
It's a positive.
I guess it was. I think maybe the literal pool break we took before finishing the song Pool Break.
Yeah.
That was kind of a high. We were just like,
that's awesome.
Having beers in a pool, like writing music without a label. It was just kind of this like magical.
Yeah,
doesn't get
felt
much
really.
It was a dream.
Yeah. Felt really weird. Felt like we were on vacation together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was great. And then we went, because we were kind of hitting a wall with that song a little bit. We took this pool break and went back in and just like came together so quick. Like to Kenny's point about going in with like a positive, fun attitude. I feel like we took that break and swam through like, and came back, and it was so easy after that. So
yeah, I think just being light with each other and like trying to have fun with it, which I think again, a lot, like we already said it, but a lot of that had to do this time around with having the freedom to kind of take our time and go at our own pace. And we did a lot more in the past. We would have scheduled 2 or 3 weeks in the studio, and by day 10 or 8 to 10, you're just fried mentally.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to go home. They're missing their spouses or kids or whatever, and it just turns into an unproductive days, expensive, unproductive days.
Yeah.
And this time we did, instead of doing longer chunks, we did a lot of like 4 or 5 day chunks where we just did more trips. So there was more flying back and forth, but they were shorter trips. And I feel like that was way more digestible. And
Mhm.
I think we kind of found our rhythm there. But yeah, I mean, like I agree with Chris, like this record just felt like, well, it's really wild to think about it. I mean, this is our sixth record. Like Chris said, that it kind of felt like there was nothing like major happened during the creation. Like we were all close enough to being on the same page that it felt, like a good experience, and there was not a huge blow up or anything crazy happened. And I was thinking about it. It's really wild to think, but it's our sixth album. Our fifth one was done remotely in COVID.
Mhm.
Our fourth one, I took a year off from the band and wasn't in the studio for the creation of that. So one original member was removed for that process. The third record, we lost one of our core members 3 days into recording it,
Mhm.
and so that was a curveball that none of us expected.
Yeah.
So it's really like, the first time since our second record that we were able to make as a group. So it's been over 10 years since we've been able to make a record front to back together without something major happening or a member not being around for the process, and I think that was really felt just with our age and maturity. It was like being able to go back to what it was like 12 years ago and try that again.
Yeah.
And this time, just I had a blast making it. I feel like it was the most fun I've had making a record since probably our first. And that one was just, it was we were just doing it for fun. There was no expectations at all. And so that was, of course, just really light and fun. But yeah, I don't know, long-winded, but yeah, to me, it's kind of all a positive experience. I can't think of any serious, real negatives aside from just your daily, being in a bad mood here and there, which just always happens.
Exactly. That's what we love to hear.
Yeah. Well,
Damn straight.
Yeah.
It's great to hear. It's
Yeah.
great to hear that it was positive. And on that note, that's all the questions we have for you guys today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Well, we just put out our record Aperture on May 9th, a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if Chris mentioned this on the actual podcast, but we are flying into rehearsals in a couple days to start touring. And so we will be touring all around the US and some Canada this year, and a lot next year as well. But tickets are available for all our shows this year. And yeah, it's going to be super fun. Can't wait to see everybody out there.
Hell yeah!
I just started a kombucha company. Can I?
Oh.
I'm just
Yeah,
I
kidding.
love
you-
kombucha.
Can I plug
I
my?
love it.
Just kidding.
Can you Venmo me at this number? Just kidding.
Here's my Cash App is.
Yeah.
Hell
No,
yeah!
I appreciate it though. Thanks so much, you too.
Of course.
Of
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
This guys
That
been
was-
Chris and Kenny from The Head and the Heart, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.